Sideline sports on my mind. Rob Browne calling game time. Highlight shine. Executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune.
It is a gorgeous Friday morning. Well, I say gorgeous. The sun's out a little bit here in the Mid-South.
Way out here. The pool's hot. It's ready to go over here.
Well, we're going to get more rain here, and it's going to be all over the South. It's just, hey, we didn't have enough rain. Now we got too much rain. It's like farmers. It's never just right. Rob Browne, Memphis, Brendan Martin down south of Ocala. Lot happening. Holy cow, we've talked a lot about the 2014 playoff this week. We got Jake Wimberly, the afternoon drive, ESPN 105.9 in Jackson, going to join us here in just a moment. And he's got a lot of numbers. We're going to bounce all over the 16. We've also got Doug Dean checking in from Birmingham. Brad Bellamy will be on in the fourth quarter. And road to Omaha, yes, it all starts today. We had Butch Thompson on yesterday. That was a
little thing called baseball starting up this week.
Yeah.
Or today. Little thing happening.
Yeah, so we'll bounce it all up because Jake is a Mississippi State grad civil engineer, so he loves structure.
Yeah. Two of the smartest guys we know right now. That we have no business being on with either one of these guys.
Yes.
Doug Dean and Mr. Jake Wimberly. Morning, gentlemen.
Absolutely, man. Good morning, everybody. Thank y'all for joining us. Do us a favor, take a picture with your cellular phone of all of them there QR codes on their Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and then the reels go up, and this stuff just grows like a flower over and over and over.
Like a flower.
Yeah, a lot happening. Jake, Doug sent some great stuff in the pregame this morning about some great topics, and it's great stuff. We've talked a lot about the 2014 playoff this week. We got the meetings in Destin, the pushback, high school football. You know it well in Mississippi. You're very involved down in Brandon, Mississippi. You did a great afternoon show in Jackson, Mississippi, folks. Listen to him. There's 16 schools in the SEC. And Frank Duffy said last week, 2 weeks in a row, we have not even talked about Alabama on the Friday show, which is football heavy. So I want to start off by just asking you, first off, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Love the wristbands. I had some. My dog ate them. I got 2 left. But let's talk about this SEC football race. And also, we got baseball starting. Starkville hosting a regional. Auburn, Florida. This SEC is stacked.
No, it is. It is. A lot going on, obviously, here in the state of Mississippi this weekend. Like everywhere around the SEC, shifts to baseball. Starkville Regional, as you referenced, Mississippi State with a 1 o'clock start time. We carry all their sports here on our sports stations. And, trying to get the game in and battle the rain in Starkville. Hattiesburg Regional, Southern Miss, trying to punch another ticket to a super regional. They'll have a tough run through Hattiesburg this weekend. Ole Miss up in Nebraska. So you've got that going on. You've got, SEC spring meetings concluding. You mentioned Alabama. We had that conversation the other day, oddly, with a guest that, it's probably, the first time in a long time where we've gone through an offseason or going through an offseason where Alabama doesn't come up a whole lot. And I think that may be something Kalen DeBoer likes is to, sit here and say, hey, look, the attention is off of us. We still got players. We got good quarterbacks. We got good coaches. So you're correct on Alabama for sure. And then, of course, Greg Sankey with a lot of stern words this week down, in Destin.
Yeah, I would like to have been in that room. And I know John Hartwell was down there, was on the show with us yesterday. He stopped by in Destin, long-time AD, and now he and Yan Coward are chasing sports construction with GMC Architecture. But the meetings have been fun. Doug Dean, you've been watching from your perch there in Birmingham. What's going on in Destin? You got NCAA baseball. There's a lot happening. Jumping here with Jake, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Jake, Doug Dean in Birmingham, fabulous to have you on the show, sir.
Good to be here.
And, let's go ahead and call it June. And when it gets to be warm and humid, I'm struggling. I don't know about y'all, but to keep the humidity inside the house below 60%, which is important for home care. But I digress. I'll tell you, I personally am not going to allocate more than 5 or 10 minutes to college football playoff format discussion. It did properly dominate discussion this week coming out of the SEC meetings. But there are a couple of quotes that are just too delicious to leave alone, right? Kirby Smart talking about we have to be careful here with this in this politically correct age that we live in, that the SEC seceding from the NCAA union. And Kirby's point was, if we're not going to come up with rules where everybody plays by on the same playing field with schedules and everything else, then the SEC he's arguing big enough to play by its own rules. I think that was just rhetorical. I don't think anybody in their right mind believes it is good for college football brand to fragment like that. But maybe it's a shot over the bow that helps. And to give Kirby credit as the dean of SEC coaches, I did like him commenting that, you know what, money matters. It always has. But do we really want our universities to be only about a $40 million funding of our football program? Or isn't there a way to figure this out where we can have men's and women's tennis, even if it's a revenue loser? Because that's what you do, for Christ's sakes, at universities. You have a total college experience, and you try to lift up all these athletes, and not to mention Olympics program. That's a money loser, right? But colleges are the developmental league for a lot of great Olympians.
Jake, what Doug said, and I agree with him. Kirby Smart's right. You got over 500,000 student athletes playing college sports, and we've all hired them in our companies where we work. I mean, you telling me you hire somebody that's on the men's or women's rowing team at Alabama or Tennessee that they ain't going to be tough? I'm going to tell you something. I talked to a friend of mine who's in the Army. He was a Ranger, and he said, listen, when we go recruit the high schools, we look at swimmers, cross-country runners, lacrosse players, people like that. Not that football is not, but, I don't want to see the college experience go away. And that's why I keep saying they talk about 2014 playoff. It's not about including more people. It's about getting more of the teams at the top end to cover their ass from getting fired. But you know as well as Doug and everybody in the free world does, if you're at Georgia or Alabama, just getting to the playoffs, so what? Now what?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I totally agree with Doug and you, Rob, on, in a perfect world, we need these sports. We want to continue to have these sports. But we all know what's going on at the top is indirectly affecting everything at the bottom. And what's going on at the top is, one, just what you said, Rob. I mean, we've seen, Danny White this week come out of Tennessee and say, hey, and I'm paraphrasing, we need more access for more people. We've seen other coaches around the country talk about the access. So I think it's twofold here. One is you've got coaches that don't want to get fired. So, if you're at Kansas State, or if you're at, Ole Miss, or if you're at Florida, and let's just say you make the playoff, you can go back to your alumni base. You can go back to your donors and say, hey, look, we're making progress. We were in the national tournament this past year. Secondly, it's all about more money too, right? And the money is not enough. It's never going to be enough. I mean, we saw Ohio State win a national championship a couple of years ago on a $25 million roster. Now we've got this year's national champions probably going to be somewhere around a $40 or $50 million roster. So when does it end? When does it stop? And then you've got this whole Washington, D.C. tie, which I don't think this thing will ever pass, that Ted Cruz and a lot of, people in Washington are trying to push through. Greg Sankey said he doesn't want anybody touching his money. I don't blame him. He doesn't want to, give his TV contracts away to a third party. And why should he? I mean, why should you put every conference in the same bucket? And not to make it political, but it already has become that way. Why do we want to socialize college sports to where the Mountain West is making as much as the SEC, and the SEC controls 36? This came out this week. 36% of the entire viewership this past year in college football came out of this conference this past year. Greg Sankey's not going to do it. And I don't believe it's going to pass because they've already made it way too political by talking about gerrymandering and bringing in voting lines. I mean, when DC gets involved, this is what always happens. So I don't know what the answer is. It's a mess.
Hey, and then Greg Byrne, I loved his quote. He jokingly said, I make a lot of comments, and we ADs will on occasion disagree with Greg Sankey. That's probably hazardous to your health. Although since we no longer have NCAA enforcement, there's not nearly as many boogeymen to be afraid of. But Byrne said, he thought it was just kind of a throwaway line that everyone agreed with. It under the new format and architecture, the SEC championship game ship has sailed. These are Greg Burns' words. It's run its course. And he said he walked in a bar or somewhere, and there were 20 TVs, and every single TV had Greg Burns' picture and that quote on there, and it got Sankey's attention. You know, I think that we all agree that the product is just fine. There's some compelling games. Rob, I think I have, maybe a lot of us, including media, have been guilty of being a little too dismissive of the Crimson Tide sitting there. Kalen DeBoer sitting there in Tuscaloosa. Alabama, of all programs, being overlooked a little bit. Yeah. We should all be so lucky to be overlooked with that preseason ranking, right? Especially Auburn and Mississippi State as they try to revive things. But I think that Alabama, we'll study it before the show's over. If you look at the schedule, what is Alabama worried about? My good high IQ, football IQ Bama friends are worried about their O-line, and they know that they've got very talented QBs, but they're untested. So you look at the schedule in early season, we'll get deeper into this schedule as the summer goes. Alabama has, at least on paper, I realize teams that don't have a blue blood name can suddenly be better than you thought, because it's so hard to predict now with the portal transfers that we reload every single year. But Alabama gets to start with East Carolina, Kentucky, a Florida State team I guess you have to respect, but it's in Tuscaloosa, and there's a little revenge factor there. And then South Carolina, which will be a test, but it's also at home. So if I'm DeBoer, I'm pretty excited that I'm not playing Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss in September. I've got time on my side to get this quarterback, whoever the starter is, more polished. So I'm just putting a place card there that I'm not ready to write off the Crimson Tide program because Kalen DeBoer has shown what he's capable of. Jake?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I mean, when you look at that schedule for Alabama, you just kind of framed it up very well. I mean, East Carolina, Kentucky on the road, Florida State, South Carolina, and Tuscaloosa at Mississippi State. Those are all winnable games. And when we could look up on October 10th when Georgia comes to Bryant-Denny Stadium and the Tide could be, 5-0, a game at Tennessee that's going to always be, a highly contested game between those two teams. Texas A&M, they grabbed them in Tuscaloosa. They do have to go to LSU, but I mean, we'll see what Lane Kiffin does, with LSU this year. But traditionally, and I say traditionally, the last 3 or 4 years, Alabama has ruled LSU on the football field. So this is an Alabama team that could easily win, 9, 10 football games, maybe even 11 football games this year. We could look up and here's Alabama sitting in the top 5, come late November.
And one quick footnote, sorry, Rob, on the playoff format. In a profile of real courage, the Big 12 announces that their coaches, I guess they put it to a vote, unanimously back the 2014 playoff. They should ask coaches what's best for college football. I disagree, Rich. Right? Coaches want, like Jake said correctly, coaches want 48 team playoff. Look, I made the playoffs. Give me a contract extension and a big raise. Do you think, I do, that these coaches, that these overpaid coaches, unless your name is Nick Saban, maybe Kirby Smart, would coach college football for $2 or $3 million? I do. If not that, what else would they be doing? You can only have so many mediocre announcers on ESPN games. So I'm not sympathetic with the Big 12, and they need a 2014 playoff because their strength of schedule is shaky at best.
Yeah, Jake, Beth Mowens. I'm sorry, comes to mind. Anyway.
Yes.
All right. Look, Doug's right. There's a reason why, like, if you study architecture, you have to take calculus. Dad practiced for nearly 60-something years as an architect. He goes, boy, I never once, I promise you, ever used calculus. But the governor of the state of Alabama and the president at Auburn was not signing my diploma till I passed the damn class. Same thing at Georgia Tech. If you get a kid who transferred after his freshman year, the end of his freshman year from Georgia Tech, and he's in good academic standing, he's got it up here because he's passed calculus. You have to do that your freshman year at Georgia Tech. And along the lines of what Doug's saying, less is more. You start getting away from quality control. Doug talks about the judgment index that the 49ers and certain teams use, and he'll talk about that in a minute. And Jake, you've got a lot of those numbers, the analytics that make absolute sense. So we talk about Alabama. Ryan Grubb, he comes from Seattle. He got fired there because they couldn't run the ball. Comes to Alabama, they have the worst running game since the venerable and should have been given a lifetime contract. J.B. Ears Whitworth was the head coach at Alabama. Worst running game since he was there in the late 50s. And the offensive line was terrible. So has all that been fixed?
I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, it's one of those deals. I mean, we're going to have to see it. I mean, and I tell you what, if Alabama can't run the football again this year, or if they struggle, or if they're mediocre, then obviously there's going to be some questions to answer. That's one of the things we don't know is, could line of scrimmage play in the SEC, at least in my estimation, has dwindled just a bit. Now, there's a lot of reasons I think to that, that you could point to that. One is the transfer portal. Take Alabama, take Georgia, even Texas. In Texas may be a little different this year. You don't have those, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys, that you can roll out on the offensive front. Now, some of those guys are at Indiana. They're at Ohio State. They're at Oregon. They're at Michigan. Alabama definitely has to play better at the line of scrimmage this year. They absolutely need to be able to run the football. So, the way you frame that up, I mean, Ryan Grubb in Seattle couldn't run the ball, comes to Alabama, can't run the ball. There's a trend there. There's a pattern. We're going to watch it this year and see if Alabama can get back to, line of scrimmage football.
All right,
Jake,
so
go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, so we got my top 5 in the SEC right now. I got Georgia playing Ole Miss for the SEC championship. And I got a lot of faith in Pete Golding, but I don't know, with him being the head coach, what's going to happen with the defense. You don't ever know. If it's a family business and you walk away from it and let someone else run it, it's not really the family business that it was. You got to be careful with that. So, but I've got Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. That's my top 5. So then there's Alabama. There's Tennessee. There's Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri. He's going to have a new quarterback. So
Alabama.
The league is I know, and I got Alabama like at 6. But Doug, along that line, the league is it that there's not just one dominant team? There's just a bunch of good teams. I think Georgia's still the best, and I think the one championship quarterback we have in this league is Gunnar Stockton, and no one wants to talk about him.
Yeah, I'm going to hit on that. I'm glad we're diving into the way too early. I don't know if June is too early to have preseason favorites. You're going to I can promise you one thing, Jake and Rob, we're going to be revising our preseason forecast by late September.
Yeah.
If you look at the schedules, but the great Gene Stockton, man, it's so funny. My Auburn buddies are going to tell me, what the hell, man? Why are you pimping Alabama all day on the show? But because we have listeners and viewers from every single SEC school and a few others that drop in, which we'd love to have. But the great Gene Stallings, famous after losing a game or two, fans call the call-in show and tell him he should be throwing the ball more. And Stallings famously said, one of the things I learned is if you start listening to people in the stands, pretty soon you'll be sitting up there with them watching a game.
That's right.
And so, from what Jake was saying about not just Alabama, but there. Believe me when I say there's some people in Auburn that say, why we got the Bo Jackson, Ronnie Browne, Cadillac Williams. You've got a DNA, and I could go on and on. Kerryon Johnson, on and on with running backs.
James Brooks.
And it occurs to me, you don't do what the fans say with your offensive strategy. But for heaven's sake, if you're Alabama or Auburn, you've got a fan base that I think every single year Coach Saban, much less Coach Bryant with the Wishbone, won a national championship or had a big year. Running game figured prominently. And, if you start trying to get cute with finesse and throwing the ball, I don't care how good the scheme and system is or how good the QB is. We've got savage defenses in the SEC that can make you look bad in at least 2 or 3, sometimes 4 games. So I think in a way I'm contradicting Stallings' quote, but I think you do, since it's the right strategic move to make offensively, And oh, by the way, your fans believe it's in your DNA. You better run the damn football enough and let it be a threat in games to protect your QB and set up play action so that you're not a sitting duck in the pocket. Jake?
No, I totally agree. I agree 100%. And what's interesting, if you go and look, let me pull this real quick. At some of the efficiency rankings off of last year in the SEC and around the country, and when we're talking about this is a collective of running the football, passing the football, Vanderbilt was arguably the best efficient team in the SEC, courtesy of, ESPN and some other numbers as well. You look at Notre Dame, now you're going to get side of the SEC. Notre Dame was very good last year. They were number 2 on the efficiency charts. They ran the football well. They could throw it. Indiana's right there, USC, Ohio State. You got to go all the way down to Ole Miss before you get to the next one. So, when you start getting into efficiency numbers on offense, Tennessee and Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, my point is the SEC is not playing offensive football as a collective the way a lot of other teams are around the country. Now, the common fan's going to say, well, that's because the defenses are so good in the SEC, and there may be something to that. But when you start looking at, defensives around the country, you've got to go all the way down to number 6 last year in the SEC because Texas Tech was at the top, Indiana, Ohio State, Miami, and then you get to Oklahoma. So, I don't know that I'm buying that either. I think it comes down to this. The line of scrimmage play in the SEC has watered down primarily because of the transfer portal, and they've got to try to find a way to get back to a line of scrimmage league. And right now, this league is not a truly dominant line of scrimmage league. That torch has been passed to the Big Ten.
It absolutely has. And the 2 years at least to build an offensive line in terms of bonding. And again, they've gotten it wrong. There was this, floating out there, mantra that this narrative, you can't be tough on the kids today. They'll quit on you. They'll leave. I go back to one of the coolest stories I ever did as a TV reporter at Fort Benning. One of those Ranger instructors was out there, and it was insane. I mean, it's intense. And he said, Rob, he looked at me, he said, Browne, he said, this is where we find the quitters, and we want to run them off now because you get in the real stuff. It's a totally so good. And my wife Audrey said it this morning. She goes, you're right, Rob. 13 weeks, Paris Island. You can take 45 people on a bus that don't know each other from Adam's House Cat. And they pull up there and they're greeted warmly by the drill instructor who gives them 5 seconds to get off his bus, and 4 of them are already gone. From that point on, your life changes. So I think the tougher you are on these kids, the shorter, period of time, more of them will stick around. Did any of y'all watch SEC Network yesterday? They were bouncing around all these camps, Tennessee, Auburn, Arkansas. I texted Ryan Silverfield. I texted Arkansas. I'm trying to get Ryan Silverfield back on the show again. But I watched the one on Tennessee, and I don't know if y'all caught this, but multiple Tennessee players they talked to, and granted, they're not going to find guys that hate it, but they talked about the culture, the hard work over and over and over. Coach Hype, and now you got Jim Knowles coaching defense. I mean, they brought the strength coach from Indiana in the day after Indiana won the national championship. You better not sleep on Rocky Top, folks. Damn, they're good.
Sure. One of the things we fans are guilty of, I think we're still breaking it. We're not all as quantitatively oriented as Jake Wimberly, and let the data guide you, right? So
civil engineer.
Yeah, educate us, Jake, but math matters, and sometimes college football shocks you with that. There's not a single metric going into a game that says this team will win, and they do. Yep. Because if you have explosive plays like block punts or pick sixes that are 99 yards, or it's a 14-point swing, so weird things happen. But I think I still have it in my brain. I'll look at a certain helmet, take SMU, take Vanderbilt a few years ago, and you're going through the schedule forecasting. Oh, that's a win. That's an automatic win. And we can't do that anymore. The problem is, I don't know. I'm only guessing, and every single other pundit is guessing. Maybe Jake is at least improves his odds with quantitative analysis, but I have no idea who's going to be the shock. Maybe it's Kentucky. Alabama has to go to Kentucky early season. That feels like an automatic win, but be careful. They took down Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in a shocker on a 4th down, gutty pass down the middle to seal the win. But I would give you this data point that I think we're going to be talking about to get into December and midseason, and that I'll call it a brutal 3, sometimes 4 game gauntlet, back to back to back, or even 4. I'll give you a couple. To me, Georgia has on paper, like I said a minute ago, the best probability of at least a 9-win regular season. I'll tell you why. They don't play Texas regular season, and Georgia, their toughest gauntlet, if it's even one, really would be back-to-back Iron Bowl teams, Auburn and Alabama. And I'm not suggesting Auburn is a difficult outing, but I think it's going to be Auburn gave trouble to Georgia and Oklahoma last year, but I think we had problems with the scheme and coaching on the offensive side of the ball. But aside from that, Georgia has what at least looks like a manageable path. They're at Ole Miss November 7th, Mizzou, South Carolina, Georgia. So they're back into their schedule, might have a loss. I don't think it'll have 2 losses. Then you look at Texas. They have Oklahoma, Florida, and Ole Miss, that run from October 10 to 24. That's tricky. I think Texas drops at least one of those. We'll see if they're good enough to run the table on those. If they do, they're a shoe-in to make the playoff. And then I'd be worried if I'm Ole Miss, only not because they're not going to be very good, even with Kiffin gone, but Ole Miss has a gauntlet of Texas, Auburn, Georgia, Oklahoma, back-to-back from October 24 to November 14th. Alabama has an easier path in regard to, gauntlets like I'm talking about, but they do have to face Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas A&M in late October. So study not just who I think is powerful, but what concentrated series of tough games do they face that are nearly impossible to run the table on.
Jake, all right. You start thinking about line of scrimmage, toughness. 1 through 44, Georgia, Alabama, stacked. Florida, 9th best roster in the country last year, according to the Blue Chip Index. Auburn was number 11. Billy Napier, good guy, low energy. Hugh Freeze, the defeated man. Now you've got John Summerall. I am Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. I mean, if you don't like being coach tough, you're probably not going to come to Florida. I love his honesty, and that's the way he is. Alex Golish. Pete Cordelli, great friend of mine for 33 years on this show every Monday with Ellis Johnson and Dave Bartu. Pete's right. He knows Golish. For 2 years, when he was at Tennessee, every week he'd be in his office recruiting Middle Tennessee because he knew Pete had coached a long-time quarterbacks. I want to ask you about Alex Golish. One of my civil engineer friends, one time I said, have you looked at these carbon fiber bridge pilings? They're using them at the Daniel Boone National Forest in eastern Kentucky. And he said, Browne, engineers don't hang their hat on something that's not a proven commodity. It takes a lot to get you to think a certain way, but the way you do your show, it is so structured. The way you do everything, it's so structured. I look at Alex Golish, 3 years at South Florida, inherits a mess, wins 9 games last year. They didn't beat Memphis. They didn't beat Tulane. He's got a quarterback, Browne. He's getting the same amount of respect coming in as a transfer as Cameron Newton did out of Belen College in Texas. It was a little scroll, New Year's Eve, 2009. Who's this guy?
Don't put that voodoo on the poor guy.
I'm not. He's not Cam Newton. I'm saying he's not getting a lot of, I promise, Doug, but he's not getting a lot of attention. And there's just quarterbacks. And then I like about Ryan Silverfield's offensive coordinator he brought from Memphis. There's some underlying stories there, and Jake, kind of bring them to the surface.
No, you're right. Look, first off, Alex Golish, you got to look at him as a kind of a commodity as a head coach. He's done a great job as a head coach of South Florida. I love the hire. When you look at some of these guys like Charles Huff, who came from Marshall to Southern Miss, made an impact. You can go down the road. Some of these coaches that have moved and brought players with them in the transfer portal, it has worked out. At least on the early go. I mean, look at Kurt Cignetti and what he did, from James Madison to Indiana. So Byron Browne looks to be, physically one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. And he is a true quarterback that's going to make you play 11 on 11. So you've got to respect the run. You got to respect the pass. I think it's going to be fascinating to see Auburn this year. And I think this team is going to be a much improved team. I don't think that they'll be in the running to win the conference, but I think this will be a team. Now, you talk about line of scrimmage football. You've got to be able to play line of scrimmage football, especially when you have a RPO type quarterback like Byron Browne. Goalless teams at South Florida played line of scrimmage football very well. I expect Auburn to be much improved this year. That's one team that I've circled and said, I like this team. Let's see what the ceiling is. We don't know, but let's see. I think they'll be much better.
Yeah, Jake, I know you got a heart out.
We'll get you out of here, Jake. But another one, I think we might all be overlooking Jeff Lebby a little bit because he's I would argue the best play caller in the state of Mississippi as we sit. No offense to Golding's staff, but Lebby's too good not to make a big step forward offensively. So I'm with you. I'm not saying Mississippi State will challenge for the comp or for the playoff, but I do think they see market improvement because Lebby's got the pedigree that most of the elite offensive minds have these days.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The thing for Mississippi State, real quickly, is going to be that Doug, you referenced, and I think it was Ole Miss's October schedule. Mississippi State's October schedule is equally as brutal. Don't have it necessarily in front of me, but playing Alabama, Texas, some of that similar mesh of teams. And I agree with you, Doug, on you've got to look at a schedule and say, who does a team play, prior to a team, but after a team, and then what does that look like down the road? And that's the problem Jeff Lebby faces is that's not a bad roster. That's a pretty darn good roster. But when you go up 4 weeks in a row, maybe a bye sprinkled in there, and you're getting beat on by better rosters, there's a mental and physical tear down of your team. I'm pulling for Jeff Lebby. I hope he, wins 6 games, maybe could get to 7. It'll be fun to watch his team this year.
Jeff, I've got the helmet schedule in front of woo. Man, Hail State. They get Alabama, then an open day. This is midseason. Then the gauntlet of LSU, Oklahoma, Texas. And if you believe in Vanderbilt, then Vanderbilt just for grins after that. So, yeah, no rest for the weary in this league.
No doubt.
Yeah, Jake, look, let people know how they can follow you. Let's do this again very soon. And as always, thanks more than you know for your time.
Oh, absolutely. Just on X at Jake Wim. And of course, we're on normally 3 to 6 every day here in the state of Mississippi. We're out today for Mississippi State baseball. Pregame at 12:30. Bulldogs getting ready. 1 o'clock first pitch time in Starkville.
As Sam Kinison said in that great movie, say it. What are Friday nights for?
Friday nights are for football and catfish. At least here in Mississippi.
You damn right.
Jake, can we have you back on as things progress?
Absolutely, Rob. Y'all know I'd love to be back with you guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, guys.
You bet. Doug, great line of questions. You're a trial lawyer in your previous life. You are structure helps me so much.
Rob, I am just a simple country lawyer.
Right.
And I need you to explain things real slow to me.
All right, we'll walk it through. I like what you said about Alabama. Hey, man, we don't hold back on this show. I know sometimes people say, Brad, how can you say nice things about Kirby or whatever? Look, I just think
trying to be objective. We're going to fail at objectivity because I bleed orange and blue, but my goodness, we should automatically, and I think Alabama, there's a sinister side of this. I think Alabama deserves to continue to have pressure of expectations. They earned it. And so what are we thinking? Like, say, well, Alabama might lose 4 games. I don't see that. I mean, they get a start, as I talked about, they get an opportunity all of September to have a manageable schedule to bring a quarterback along, find a running game. Yeah. And so I think they're going to, like a lot of us, we're going to find out the disruption of the portal and can you reload at offensive line? They had some problems at O-line, and all it did was get one of their O-linemen that was criticized a first-round draft pick. So that's when they're down, they get guys, they still get first-round draft picks.
Yeah, and looking at LSU, they've got so much talent there. That's not been the issue when Brian Kelly was there. And everybody wants to jump on Lane Kiffin, but when it matters, the guy wins. I've got him. I've got Kirby, Smart, Kurt Signetti, Lane Kiffin, top 3 coaches in college football. Not that Ryan Day is not good. I think he's a hell of a coach. And last year, Bartu talked about this on the show. He said, look, don't just dismiss the fact that Ryan Day hadn't called an offense in years, and now that his offensive coordinator's gone, he's going to have to call plays against Miami. Right then, I said, I'm betting on Miami to win that game in Dallas, and they did. And bouncing outside the SEC quickly, Doug, Mario Cristobal has finally got what he wants, and he keeps getting the journeyman quarterback. I mean, they're calling him a ringer or whatever, Carson Beck. Now he's got, your guy from Duke. There was a little bit of a legal thing about that. He had Cam Ward a few years ago. Outside of the SEC, do you have some teams, I'm sure you do, that you really like? And then we're going to talk some NCAA baseball. And if we can, Brendan, if we can put up the brackets on the screen. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but who outside the SEC? Because, we don't live in an echo chamber.
I think you said it. You have to start with Miami. They were that close, weren't they, against an unbelievable Indiana team with the number 1 overall pick in the draft, Mendoza, who won the Heisman. Great coaching effort last year. I mean, that's a clinic that you better believe every coach is studying. How can we get older on our team in the portal? I think Miami, and I'll you've sort of lobbed a softball up for me to talk about Notre Dame. Yeah. Now I got it. This is the tale of two cities. I will allow you to hate or respect Notre Dame as follows. If we are now in the SEC talking about looking out for our interests, and as Kirby Smart, the dean of coaches, said, possibly seceding from the NCAA union if the rules cannot be fairer and a level playing field. Okay, it's okay to look out for your interests. Well, then we need to quit hating on Notre Dame for looking out for their institutional and athletic interests by not joining a conference in football. At the same time, I will not debate anybody who says Notre Dame on paper has a cupcake schedule this year coming up. I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but to me, on paper, in any game, as we know by now, can prove to be tough on a particular Saturday out of nowhere. But Notre Dame, the only game that stands out is a home test with the Miami Hurricanes. Those two really were battling it out to be picked last year, and it's hard to criticize Miami being the choice. Notre Dame's loaded, but then back end of the season, they've got Boston College. SMU might be better than we realized by that point. But Notre Dame, it's almost impossible with the way the rules are set up with a favoritism to Notre Dame. It's impossible to see the Irish not making the playoff this season. So, and you know what? Dave Bartu says strength of schedule matters nothing, zilch, when it comes to picking a national champion. You can play a easy to manageable schedule, and if you're good enough, it will have nothing to do with are you ready to make a run in the playoffs. So I like Miami and Notre Dame might be two to keep an eye on out of the conference.
Hi, as they say, point of parliamentary procedure. Going back to Notre Dame, you're right. That's a great take on it because I've learned so much about Notre Dame from my good friend Pete Cordelli, who coached there. He reveres the place. He's a Catholic. His father coached high school football in the Chamonix, PA for 45 years. Pete really does but he's right. He goes, they are looking out for the best interest. And you're right. And people forget that sometime. And everybody says, Browne, you've got to go to a game in South Bend. Hadn't you been to like a bunch when you were up there?
A dozen.
That's what I thought. 11.
It's one. Yeah. I'm a closet.
So you've been
second favorite team for a lot of reasons. You mentioned a couple of them, but you can like a team and still be critical of their governance or brand or decisions. And it was on Notre Dame. They choked a game last year. They had no business losing. And you have to live with that. But I think going forward, if it gets to 16 teams, which is what Sankey wants, you would figure Notre Dame would have to really try hard most any year not to make the playoff.
Well, you're right. And I think with Notre Dame, with Miami, and then you got to look at Ohio State. But Ohio State, they're you're right. Strength of schedule.
They're always going to be in the conversation
because of the money they have. Yeah. Another thing too is you're right about strength. Bartu, I agree. In college strength of schedule, he goes, I don't care who Ohio State plays. You don't have to see. You just can see them play, and this is a great team. And you look at it. It's going to, nationally outside Texas Tech. I don't know what's going to happen with Sorsby. But I think they're very clear. Roman Harper said it about a month ago on the show. From day one in the NFL, they tell you mess with gambling, your ass is out of here, okay? You're gone. And if they allow Sorsby, I don't care if it was 4 years ago and he's going through all this rehab and everything like that. Good for him. If they let him do it, you know who started all this crazy immediate transfer? You know, my pillow's too hard. It was Justin Fields out of Kennesaw, Georgia. When he left Georgia because he couldn't beat out Jake Fromm and went to Ohio State. And this is when this started, and it's got to stop. Okay, Doug, Brad Bellamy will be on here in a minute from Landers, but looking at baseball, we had Butch Thompson on yesterday talking about, Auburn all over the SEC and nationally. UCLA is the number 1 seed. Now, it is kind of funny to say they're in the Big Ten, but that's not a Big Ten roster. And you've got Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Georgia. I mean, Georgia's the best team in the country. Wes Johnson, former pitching coach at LSU, in his 3rd year, they win the SEC regular season and the SEC tournament, which very few schools have been able to do. You think about the popularity of NCAA college baseball. It's why you've got Braves Nation, Rays Nation, Cardinals Nation. Yeah. People are doing like they did. You and I grew up. We could go end to end on the roster and tell you everybody's height, weight, and hometown in high school. And we knew all the coaches. Baseball is resonating. They're doing that. They're connecting with the fans. And, you look around. I mean, a place like Florida, let's just look at them. Kevin O'Sullivan, 17 years, 9 World Series, a national championship. I think things are so good at Florida, 268 SEC championships. The closest school behind them is Georgia now at 153 with that baseball title. I almost think it's so easy to win in baseball at a place like Florida. Mike Martin at Florida State, 42 years, 21 trips to the World Series, but no national championships. I think sometimes it's so easy you don't maybe realize what you've got, but you think the SEC will dominate and win another national championship? They've been like they were in football for so long.
I'll answer it this way. I mean, and there's some outstanding teams at the top outside the SEC that you would figure are going to emerge from super regionals and be in Omaha. But if I look down the list at Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, coming in, hosting regionals, man, especially Georgia, they are so lethal on offense. I think their pitching is excellent. It may not be, when you start having to get to your 3rd and 4th option pitching and how games can be funny if they run your starter or in early innings. But Georgia has firepower. It's hard to imagine them suddenly going on a cold streak. But to me, the baseball, the fun of it is some years it can be about who gets hot starting with these regionals. We only need to go back to Ole Miss's run. They had an okay season. You knew they had talent, but they won it. They won the SEC tournament and then essentially never lost again, going all the way to the World Series championship in Omaha. So you could see almost any of these, except maybe Georgia, getting knocked out of their regional or super regional because it's about who gets hot, and you cannot have the bats go cold, which Auburn has had happen a few times despite great pitching. It breaks your heart to lose a game 2-1 just because you couldn't eke out a little bit of offense. That can happen in these regionals. Morning, Brad.
Yeah, morning, Brad.
Morning, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good. And it's funny, by the way, real quick. Butch Thompson said yesterday, Auburn gave up 3 runs in 3 games in Hoover and went 2-1. I mean, that's a tough league.
Got to score.
Yeah, but how do you break away from the competition? You guys at Landers, Ford, and Memphis.com. Brad, first off, thanks more than you know for being a sponsor and being on the show with us. Tell us what's going on out there at Landers. I know you got employee pricing, and I'll take it from there. You'll take it from there.
Yeah, man, it's been a fantastic month, Rob. We're gonna break over 100 new this month, which is fantastic for us. And had a big run, had a great Memorial Day. We were 10 units higher this Memorial Day weekend and last Memorial Day weekend, and people just keep coming out because we got great deals. Our used inventory is back over 100 units. Our new inventory, we're blowing and going with it. They show up, we sell them out. So employee pricing. We got a handful of 25s left. They got some extra rebate on top of the employee pricing, but just as an example, a $95,000 expedition, you're looking at about $8,000 off. Super Duties, $9,000 off on some of these. So great deals. Folks need to come on out last weekend of the month. So we're trying to make sure we get to our internal goals. So come out, give us a chance, and we'll make you happy. Great car buying experience. Don't put a lot of pressure on folks. We do not throw any keys on top of the roof. So we let them stay on our desk when we're doing used car evaluations. But I got a 4 trade deal happening today. So guys buying 1 car, trading in 4. We'll figure it out, guys. Even if it's an 02 that's got grass growing in it from us in the driveway for the last 15 years, we'll make you an offer on it. You bring us a title, and we'll make it go away for you. So really excited about that. And then Monday I was out on the grill, grilling out burgers and brats and dogs and sausages, and had a lot of folks come out. So we're gonna do it again tomorrow. So I'll be out there grilling out for the last day of May, because we are closed on Sunday. So tomorrow is our last day of the month of May. So come on out, check us out. Remember, $500 off to any of your listeners if they mention that they heard it here on SEC Sidelines.
Yeah, and look, Doug was asking me this. I watched the Beverly Hillbillies a lot. Remember the truck they drove, that Jethro drove? What do you think they'd get on that for a trade-in?
I mean, I think at the time, if they still had it in Beverly Hillbillies shade, they'd probably get a lot for it, because it's a 1-of-1.
Good point.
Kind of like getting a DeLorean from Back to the Future. If it's one of the prop units, you might get some money for it. If it's one that's still rolling around here, it ain't going to be worth much.
Brad, I'm a prospect for you. I'm in the research stages, but I've always had my eye on the iconic Great American F-150. And my question is the hybrid, is it every bit as hot a choice for your customers as other options in the F-150, engine options in the F-150?
Absolutely. I mean, especially right now, guys, as gas prices have eked over $4 a gallon again. I mean, we've seen more demand on hybrids. We've been ordering more hybrids as a result of it. One of my friends just bought a used hybrid with 90,000 miles on it that was a King Ranch, because he's tired of paying as much money. He does a lot of city driving. You're not going to see a huge difference on the highway between a hybrid and a non-hybrid, but you absolutely see a huge difference in the city. I mean, you go from about 17, 18 miles a gallon to 23. So big difference there. Also, your power's a little bit different. You got a little bit more torque and takeoff because of the hybrid engine. And hybrids, EVs, we've seen a spike in demand. We sold our last Lightning yesterday to somebody from Knoxville, that they were here in town for the Italian Fest and saw that we had one. They couldn't get one at home, and so they bought the last one we had yesterday. So, it's amazing how much when you start having to pay a couple $100 at the fuel pump for gas, will change your decisions on things. So, we'll see how long some of that stuff lasts, but we definitely have seen a spike in demand and interest. And expeditions, we've had a huge expedition month. Right now, we're top 5 in the region in Bronco sales. I mean, it's been a really strong just program with the inventory we have.
Yeah, and I got a 36-gallon gas tank. I fill that thing up. I drive down to the coast, 672-mile range. That's pretty darn good. Brad, last couple of weeks, it was funny. Frank said last week, we hadn't even talked about Alabama, but we talked a lot about Alabama.
Well, we were loving on them today.
Yeah. So I want to get your thoughts, because Doug made a great point. I mean, we don't live in an echo chamber. We say it over and over and over. Looking at this SEC football, we bounced around talking these regionals and baseball. There's just a lot going on, and we got till late June. College baseball to Omaha, Father's Day. Like Butch says, nothing better than being up in Omaha on Father's Day. But looking, at college football right now, those meetings in Destin, 2014 playoff, all that stuff, everybody's talking about it. What are your takeaways? And do you have a newfound respect for Greg Sankey for standing his ground for Friday night high school football?
I've always had a respect for Greg Sankey. I think he's done a great job leading the SEC. I don't like the idea of a 2014 playoff. I think it's too many teams. I think 16, fine. But I agree with the thought of, I mean, what do we do, guys, if all of a sudden your last game of the year, Alabama's playing Auburn, Alabama's locked up, a let's say they locked up a 4 seed because there's no more SEC championship. They're undefeated at that point in time in the year. I don't think this would ever happen, guys, where a quarterback would sit out the Alabama-Auburn game. But, you know, I mean, some of this stuff matters more. And if they get rid of the SEC championship game, which I think is a huge draw for Atlanta, huge draw for the SEC, huge media buy. I don't like the idea of some of these things. I think it was it Kirby Smart or no, Clark Lee that said, you know, that's the number one goal they have is win the SEC championship.
Yeah.
You know, that's their target for the year. And so I don't know. I think they're going too far. I do like the idea of some type of salary cap. I would like for it to be a little bit more public and just say, hey, here's our cap. I mean, same thing with baseball. I mean, these contracts are getting to the point of just ridiculousness. $700 million contracts. I mean, guys, it's kind of past the point of crazy. So I don't know if that'll happen. We'll probably have another strike in baseball, unfortunately, because I don't think the players are going to want a cap. But I mean, back to football, I think we need it. I think we need a lot more regulation on how we go about doing this and not allowing. I think it's bad for the sport when you got guys that are transferring 3 or 4 times, you know, and then you got this Sorsby situation going on at Texas Tech now and the gambling stuff that they inherited from, you know, not doing enough due diligence on their own because they should have known that. I mean, according to the things that have come out, I mean, they said Cincinnati was aware. So the Texas Tech just think it was going to blow over. It's a huge mistake.
Cody Campbell probably did, Doug.
Yeah, and Brad, again, we appreciate your knowledge of football. You're not only setting records in Ford sales, but you apparently have you're able to multitask and keep an eye on college athletics. But you know, back to Alabama, since you follow them more granularly, that's a great word for Friday, isn't it, Rob?
Yes, sir.
So,
especially after the spelling bee yesterday. Can you spell it, Rob?
I said that I think, and I guess this is either a compliment or a tricky left-handed compliment if you prefer, but I think Alabama for the foreseeable future should have high expectations from all of us any given August because they've earned that and the foundation is there. But if I'm a Bama fan, what I'm looking at is what do you most need? You need time. I think DeBoer would say, I need time to develop the starting quarterback and probably a backup. It's hard to get through the SEC without needing your backup here and there. But Alabama gets a September that on paper looks manageable for quarterback development. Now, the minute I say that, South Carolina and Mississippi State will be tougher than we expect. And that's your fourth and fifth game. But I think Alabama gets that. And also Georgia and Alabama both do not face Texas regular season. Yeah. So that Alabama-Georgia game, I've forgotten when that one falls. But or do you play
October game?
Yeah, I think it's October. Yeah,
October 10th.
It's mid October 10th. So that one, man, that sure has a look of winner of that one has a huge chess game advantage. But do you agree that Alabama no one has an easy schedule in the SEC, but some appear more manageable the way they're sequenced than others? I would put Alabama in that category, Brad.
The Boer's got to figure out how to win on the road in the SEC. I mean, we've got games on paper last year that looked like games that Alabama should manage and win. I mean, they went into the Oklahoma game and, you know, who would have ever thought after everything that happened, you know, and then trying to remember, there's another game last year was like, well, this is going to be a win for Alabama, and then they didn't show up. So, you know, I mean, it's
you never know.
My jury's still out. I mean, I understand the thought process of locking them down and having consistency and not trying to get rid of coaches. And I appreciate the sentiment there. But the reality is this, guys, if he doesn't win next year, all that stuff doesn't matter. I mean, like, you can say that all you want, but if Alabama has 4 losses and they don't make the playoff, you think DeBoer's going to have a job this time next year? I mean, really?
Can they afford to win him?
You just made it more expensive to exit.
Yeah. I mean, you made it more expensive to exit, but at the same time, you can only go so many years and live off Saban's dynasty. You know, in the world of college athletics, the patience is just not there. I appreciate somebody saying it, but, you know, reality versus, you know, talk is a huge difference in college football. I'm just like, if Kiffin doesn't get to the playoff 2 out of the next 4 years and doesn't win a national championship, I don't think he's there 5 years from now. I mean,
agreed.
Again,
And
I could be totally wrong, but the expectation of these SEC schools is so great that the fan bases aren't going to sit around and wait, especially if, next year Big Ten wins another national championship and the SEC is not the dance. I mean, there's too much expectation, guys.
To your point, and Brendan may want to hop in on this comment. I've had two teams. There are probably more in the SEC that I want to tell their fan bases, and they won't want to hear this in Baton Rouge. But you've hired a very capable head coach, and I think Florida did. That's the other team, Sumrall. But don't put all your eggs in the basket of hyping 2026 like that's an all or nothing test of did we get the right guy. I mean, you don't have to second guess, is Kiffin capable of monster seasons? It's a different discussion. Does he fit the profile of fit with your fan base? And that LSU knows who they hired. He's not going to be a saint, but can he win big at LSU? Everyone else has. People that aren't coaches and aren't even Mensa's can win national championships there. But I would tell LSU and Florida fans, tap the brakes on it being a 9+ win season in 2026. It might be, but I think these coaches, both, even Kiffin, need to get to 2027 to have all of their systems humming along.
Yeah. We got about a minute left. I agree with that. We had Tuesday night. I've got Florida at 8-4. I've got them losing to Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, and Georgia. So, but this league is so tough. But here's the thing with Alabama: they get down 17-0 on the road at Norman last year. Fans are in a meltdown. We were over at the hunting club. A lot of Alabama guys in the club freaking out. And I said, y'all are going to win the game. I picked them to win. I didn't think they'd get down 17-0 to win, but I did win that one. But if you can't run the ball in the SEC, you're going to struggle because that means your line of scrimmage is not dominant. Okay. And it's that simple. Look, not opened on Sundays because, as they used to say at SAG's Big and Tall store for 100 years in West Memphis and East Arkansas, the day means more than the dollar. By the way, Audrey and I are going to go meet with David Jordan, Agape Memphis. They do a lot of great stuff. Landers backs them. You got your name on 6 high school football stadiums. So you know what? Friday nights matter, and what you all do matters, Brad, and we cannot thank you enough for being a sponsor, getting tremendous growth on this show. And those of you that watch, ask for Brad Bellamy. Just make it simple. Go out there and get a new car, truck, or SUV, or a pre-owned one. They will take care of you, and you will get to talk some serious football. Hey, check out all of our sponsors on the sidelines.live. We're redoing the website, so we're going to have a great place for you to go hang out. But, guys, I got to say, football magazines ought to be out by Monday or so. Is anybody going to go buy them? I'm going to buy all 3 of them. How about y'all?
Yeah, I'm going to buy that Phil Steele. That's hard to say. Phil Steele.
Yeah.
Because it's type font 5. You need a microscope to read it.
Yes.
Rob,
Brad,
I haven't bought a magazine since I was probably in college. So I would say, probably not. Probably not going to be the target audience for this year's magazine. But you guys should go out and buy it, and then you can be smarter than me on this show like you always are.
Well, I got a wasp flying around the studio here. Hold on, Cal. But anyway, great stuff, though, as always. Again, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the history of the world. We got the best guest, the best audience, the best executive producer on the planet. Everybody have a great weekend. Chapel Hill Regional, you're right. My dream matchup in baseball will be East Carolina versus Arkansas, because you know what? I can say the Pirates versus Arkansas. So
Arkansas is good.
Yeah.
See you guys.
All right,
See you guys. Have a great Friday.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline Sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune.